AMSOIL, let's talk about AMSOIL two-stroke oils for a minute because we have a few different kinds. And you would think in these two-stroke oils, why would we end up with so many variations? Well, remember we just talked about how this oil mixes, how it goes in. Well, outboard two-stroke engines have a thermostat for a reason that most people don't realize. It's actually to keep them running warm enough. Because remember, they suck up lake water, river water, ocean water, and they run it through the engine and they exhaust it. Now, you could be in Lake Michigan and the water could be 48 degrees, or you could be in Lake Apopka in the summer and it could be 90 degrees. So the engine could run way too cold with 48 degree intake water, and it might be running just about where you want it if it was set up to run on 100 degree intake water. So what they do is they put a thermostat in to control the flow of water to run the engine at least 150 degrees. They don't want it to run colder than 150 degrees. They want it to run 150 degrees. Now that's a water-cooled two-stroke engine. So when we're talking about these oils, you see that rating on here that says NMMA TCW3, and then the one that says API TC. Well, that NMM, I can say it, A, is the National Marine Manufacturers Association two-cycle water number 3. And the other one is API TC, just meaning two-cycle oil, okay? Now the reason that's important is because the heat ranges these oils run in is what's the difference. The TCW3 oils are designed to run at cooler temperatures. The TC rated oils are designed to run at higher temperatures. So this oil actually can qualify to run for both, but it's actually preferred to run in the cooler applications. That's what it's made for. If you were in a chainsaw, this wouldn't be our preference, or a weed whacker, something like that. Now, when you get over to air-cooled engines, they don't have any water flowing through them, so they don't have a thermostat. So all they're depending upon is dissipation of heat by the fins that are on the engine itself for the heat to dissipate. So they're going to run hot depending upon how hard they're driven. If they're idling along, they're not too hot. If they're run really hard, they start getting really hot. So the hotter the engine runs in the two-cycle oils, you would have to have actually a richer mixture of anti-scuff or anti-wear additives in that base stock in order to keep up with the increasing heat. Now, the interceptor oil has what we call a double shot of additive package, which is designed both to take intense heat activity and to prevent those power control valves from sticking. Remember we talked about this air coming through the engine? Well, those power control valves, after you get past the exhaust port and you're headed to go out, bang, there's a power control valve stuck in your exhaust pipe. What is this thing doing? Well, since I don't have any other way to control how the air goes through it except by controlling how much can get past the exhaust, I put this throttling device in there that will limit then how fast this engine can suck new air in, because it's got to get it past the exhaust. The goes out limits the coming in. And so the power control valves are a throttling device designed to limit or prevent this engine from trying to run away with itself, because I'm going to set it up with fuel air mixture that it could just ramp up, and that's not going to control it. In other words, I'm going to give it more fuel and air than it could stand. It could blow itself up. I could give it enough. So what I do is I just throttle it down with the exhaust, and it can't get enough fresh mixture in. Now, some of those power control valves are on machines that actually have a blower. In other words, they force air in under pressure into the engine so that they can get more of it in quicker, right? That's going to let it go to a higher RPM and operating. But again, you have no way to control it, no way to stop it from trying to take off and run away. So this power control valve will actually limit the high-speed operation. That's why it's called power control. It's controlling the top-end power to protect the engine from blowing itself up. Now, the problem you run into is since it's sitting in the exhaust, you can imagine they get real hot. And so one fellow told me that if you make a mistake and run petroleum engine oil in these things, power control valve, they last about 20 minutes before the power control valve is just stuck solid. and that's it. Now you're gonna have to take it apart and clean it before you can use it. So you wouldn't even get a day running around in the lake, fooling around with this cheap oil before you can be stopped in your tracks. So you have to use synthetic engine oil. Now, the HPI oil that I was just talking about, it works in these machines. And they'll last quite a while on it. But the interceptor oil will probably last 2 to 3 times as long as the injector oil before you have to clean it. And if you run those things hard enough, eventually you'll have to clean the power control valve. It doesn't matter too much what oil you're going to run because they just run so hot. But what these improved synthetic oils do is they really just kick this time way out to where you have to mess with it. And then usually if you have to, the carbon that comes off is rather soft. It may be there, but it's rather soft. You bake that stuff on with a petroleum oil, it becomes hard as a brick on there, and it's almost time to replace the power control valve because it's very hard to get it clean. So, two-stroke engine oils. Let me just give you a quick breakdown. We've got the HPI injector oil. That's a TCW3 oil. It's rated for watercraft use. Okay, we have 100-to-1 outboard motor oil, which is also TCW3. It's rated obviously for outboard. It says it right in its name, outboard motor oil. Okay. Then we have interceptor, which can be used in any, whether it's watercraft or non-watercraft that has power control valve. If they put it in one of these high-performance water scooters, then that's fine. You know, like a Sea-Doo or Arctic Cat or something that's on the water. If it's got power control valves, interceptor oil is the best match for it. Okay. And then we have Dominator oil, which is a pure racing oil. Dominator, different than the other oils, is actually designed to be run at about a 50-to-1 mixture for maximum increased horsepower. And it'll increase horsepower up to 17% in the applications whenever it's run at a 50-to-1 mixture in a high-performance racing application. Dominator oil is a terrific product, but it is not, I repeat, not designed to run in your 25 horsepower kicker that you're troll fishing with down the river. It will clog it up because it is expecting the engine to run hot, heavy, and hard. If it runs slow and average, you cannot burn it out of the cylinder. It will start to clog up the cylinder, okay? So if somebody's wanting to use a high performance oil, but they're not really in racing, just sell them interceptor oil. Very high performance oil, just short of the Dominator series. But Dominator, I've had people complain that they were trying to use it, and I said, well, what were you using? I was using my outboard, my 25 horsepower. Well, you can complain a lot more because it's like trying to use a square peg in a round hole. That's not what it was intended for. So if you were in a fix, you didn't have any oil, but you had HP injector oil, it's TC rated and it's TCW3 rated. So it can run in those applications. It could run all day in your weed whacker. It's just not in the temperature range it was really designed to run. So AMSOIL's gone to the trouble to make a variety of these oils so that they actually fit the application, and it's basically an application of temperature. Because your weed whacker, believe it or not, runs a lot hotter than your outboard motor does. Even your 250 horsepower outboard motor is probably running at 150 degrees. Little weed whacker is probably running at 250 degrees. So you have to use them where they're actually designed to be used. And when you look at the benefits of these things, I'm telling you, if you mix them correctly, they will really make this equipment last, because the anti-wear product, the high-performance polymers, much superior to trying to run the ash-based zinc in these pieces of equipment. They'll run clean, spark plugs last a long time. But one quick caution right now, because we have ethanol mixed in our gas all over the country. I will say this outright: some knucklehead in Washington came up with a stupid idea, and they're paying for it with billions of dollars, just in buy votes in Iowa. So good for you, Iowa. Okay, so that being said, ethanol is a real problem. It's trying to ruin two-cycle engines. It's screwing up cars. It's not worth the time to make it. But here's our problem with two-stroke engines. I take any fuel tank that's got ethanol in a two-stroke engine. I set my weed whacker down. I leave it for 2 or 3 weeks. The ethanol comes out of solution, picks up some moisture, goes to the bottom of the tank. The gasoline floats to the top. the pickup tube for all these little 2-cycle engines in the bottom of the tank. So what happens now, you go out and start it. Guess what? That thing will run on 100% alcohol. Doesn't have any trouble. Problem is, all of the oil fuel mixture's up in the gasoline. So now you're sucking in raw alcohol with no lubricant. Doesn't take it but a minute or two until your weed whacker now seizes up and is ruined because of our experiment with ethanol. Now, short of anything else, pick up your 2-cycle equipment and shake the thing fairly vigorously to where you make sure the gas is all shook up before you start it. That's just a piece of advice. Now, you can buy a product that's on the market now. AMSOIL has one which is designed to prevent stratification. It will not allow the ethanol and the gasoline to come apart and stratify. That's a product called Quick Shot from AMSOIL, and that's what that's all about. It's to try to help us with this ethanol disaster that we're part of. One of my mower shops, they've already had 250 claims for 2-stroke equipment that everyone's been turned down by the manufacturer, because the manufacturer says this engine's not designed to run on fuel with no lubricant. You ran it on fuel with no lubricant, that's your problem. Okay, so that is my best advice to anybody, is to pick up your 2-stroke equipment, shake it enough to make sure you at least mix it back up before you try to use it. And when using 2-stroke oils, pay attention to the mixture from the oil manufacturer. Okay, the equipment manufacturer is making an assumption that you're using the cheapest 2-stroke oil on the market, so they tell you to mix it at 32-to-1. Well, you're lucky they don't tell you to mix it 16-to-1 because they're so scared of the stuff ruining their equipment. But when you buy something like AMSOIL or one of the other high-performance synthetics in the marketplace, go by the directions on the bottle, because be assured that AMSOIL knows that there are 16-to-1 and 32-to-1 and 40-to-1 and 50-to-1, all these different equipment out there. But they have manufactured a 2-stroke engine oil in a premix that says to mix it at 100-to-1. And that's because it's a much better lubricant than those petroleums. And if you mix it at a more concentrated mixture than 100-to-1, you will end up doing just what you're not wanting to do, which is to clog up the exhaust port eventually, because you can't burn this mixture of oil out because you've overmixed it. So mix it according to the directions and it will just treat you well.